Boom, bam, pow, blow. What is up, guys? Today I'm taking a break from some sweet Smash Brothers to bring you another deep dive. Today in the form of a very special Pokemon, considering he's getting a deep dive, I guess. There's not too much special about it. Anyways, today we're actually going to be talking about Empoleon. Empoleon is actually a water and steel type Pokemon, very unique typing there. At level 40 with 15 IVs across the board, you can max out at exactly 2900, so not too shabby there. You can actually achieve a 1500 at level 19 and a half if you have a 0, 13, 15 IV spread, which, not too shabby. So according to my spreadsheets and all the math that I've done, Empoleon actually should rank somewhere around 45th in bulk and 41st in stat product. So kind of okay there. At least he's on the top end of our, total number of participants. He at least is better than the average, but he's not really too special in this department. But as we've seen, it can actually make a big difference depending on your moves, how much these actually end up affecting you. So let's get into our moves here. Being that we are a water and steel type Pokemon, I do have our stab candidate moves color coded down here for you. So starting with our fast moves, we do have Waterfall, which generates 2.67 energy per turn for a whopping 4 damage per turn. Holy cow. Then we also have Metal Claw, which actually gains 3 energy per turn, so a little bit better, but only 2.5 damage, so a lot worse. And in terms of which fast move to go with, Waterfall is kind of the no-brainer here, forfeiting only a third of your energy per turn to get just a massive gain in damage. I did test out some different combinations, and no matter which one I went with, Waterfall generated the best results. Now in terms of our charge moves down here, we do have Hydro Pump, Blizzard, and Flash Cannon. So these are some actually really powerful moves here. As you can see, they are all pretty high damage, but they all do cost quite a bit to get to as well. So let's get into these. Hydro Pump here costing 75 for 130 damage at a 1.73 ratio. Blizzard costing 75 for 130 damage, also at a 1.73 ratio. And Flash Cannon here for 65 energy, you get 110 damage at a 1.69 ratio there. So pretty respectable charge moves. The only problem that I have is that they're all really high energy charge moves. He doesn't have any speed to him. He's kind of slow to get to even most of his charge moves, and even then, the payoff isn't huge. It's nice. It's a very substantial payoff, but it's nothing amazing. So kind of not hitting on a whole lot in the move department, which kind of sucks. Now if I had to choose a moveset based on my testing with PvPoke and all the simulations that I've done, you can kind of just flop whichever one you want between Hydro Pump and Blizzard. Flash Cannon is basically the move that you're going to go with a lot of the time in this cup. So it kind of just depends on which one you want to do. Personally, for me, Blizzard makes a whole lot more sense considering that I'm already carrying a water type fast move. I'd like to have at least a little bit more move coverage out of my Pokemon, so I'd personally go with Blizzard and then Flash Cannon, which is the actual moveset that I use for all of the simulations in this video, so keep that in mind. Moving on here, let's actually take a look into some of our shielding situation. So in a situation where I have no shields and my opponent doesn't have any shields either, we actually end up winning 53.8% of those matches. So you could say kind of like in a closing scenario, wherever you're completely out of shields, neither opponent nor you has any shields, 53.8% is respectable. I mean, it's not amazing, but hey, that's okay. Next, we have 2 shields versus 0 shields. So in a situation where I have my shields, but my opponent doesn't have any shields, we actually end up winning 97.4% of those matches. Now, the entire reason that we run this simulation is to figure out which Pokemon just flat out beat us. No matter what, I want to know which Pokemon just are hardcore counters to our Empoleon here, no matter how many shields we have. And there's 2. Abomasnow, which was kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting Abomasnow, but it makes a lot of sense. And Lucario. So that sucks. Pending that one of the kings is the hardest counter to your Pokemon makes it kind of underwhelming. Next situation is 0 shields versus 2 shields. So whenever I have no shields and my opponent has 2 shields, I want to figure out which Pokemon just have a hard time beating Empoleon, and really whichever Pokemon that I really need to focus my attention on when I have my Empoleon in my pocket. Being said we win 37.2% of these matchups, a lot of the matchups were fire types. And that's kind of a theme with Empoleon. He does wreck a lot of the fire types in the meta. Considering that Empoleon can output a ton of damage to the fire types, really makes him just stick out in a very good way there. In our last situation here, we have 2 shields versus 2 shields. So kind of, if you can imagine, a lead-off situation. We actually end up winning 80.8% of our matches. So that is huge. I love 80%. Is just, oh, that's amazing. So that number right there alone convinced me that Empoleon actually may have a pretty good place in this meta. But let's actually move on to a little bit of our matches. So in all of the deep dives, I end up taking our subject Pokemon, Empoleon, and I put him up against the top 10 bulkiest Pokemon in the cup to see how well he does against the big bulk. Well, it's kind of 50-50, which is very reflective of his no shields versus no shields situation there. So we actually end up losing to Registeel, Probopass, Steelix, Lapras, and Torkoal. Yeah, Torkoal's an interesting one. Even though Torkoal has the fire typing and we have Waterfall, Torkoal can reach its Earthquake way faster than we can even reach our Flash Cannon. So it really does end up putting a number on us, considering that it's faster than us. And you'll see that's kind of a theme amongst this deep dive. As far as the Pokemon that we outright beat, though, we do actually end up winning against Bastiodon, Regice, Dugong, Altaria, and Skarmory. So, personally, the reason that I ended up going with Blizzard is to help cover some of the dragon typings. Considering that we carry the steel type, we are going to resist dragons a little bit, and having that Blizzard makes us pretty much a really good hard counter to the dragons, which is kind of why I like Blizzard better than Hydro Pump in this situation. Now, in terms of which Pokemon we should focus our attention on with Empoleon, and which Pokemon should you consider if you're worried about losing to Empoleon? Well, let's go over the negatives first. So if we're going to be going up against Empoleon, we actually have favorable matchups amongst dragons. So things like Kingdra, Shelgon, and Dragonair all do really good up against Empoleon. Empoleon can't really push enough damage, he's not quick enough, and he's not fast, and that sucks. So another one are Pokemon that carry electric type moves. Even Melmetal, Magneton, and even Arcanine can actually do really good up against Empoleon. Arcanine having access to Wild Charge really can help set up a really good damage output up against Empoleon. Even though we're going to be going up against a water type with Arcanine, still pretty much works. Lastly here, as far as what we should be able to counter Empoleon with, things that carry ground type moves like Flygon, Metagross, and even Fortress all do really well up against Empoleon because they have access to either Earthquake or Mudshot or something of that nature to really put a big hurting on our Empoleon here. Now, in terms of what we should focus our attention on if we're running an Empoleon, kind of cut and dry here. So fire types are a big one. So Camerupt, Infernape, and Alolan Marowak all end up falling really hard to our Empoleon. But like I said, Arcanine is kind of a wild card because if it has Wild Charge, then it can kind of break through. So keep in mind that because Empoleon is so slow, anything that has access to charge moves that are super effective against Empoleon can end up hurting you, even if it is a typing that you have type advantage over. So, kind of scary there. Next, we actually could focus our attention on some of the steel types. Things like Matang, Lairon, and Skarmory all have a hard time getting over our Empoleon here. Skarmory was a surprising one. We do actually end up winning against the Skarmory here. We kind of just end up resisting a lot of the flying damage because we're steel type that Skarmory pushes out. So, kind of nice that we end up beating some of the steel types in this meta. But there again, keep in mind, things like Aggron are really going to be able to push through you. It can actually get to that electric move way quicker than you can even get to your charge moves. So keep that in mind that even Aggron, even though it's a steel type and it's a rock type, and you should have a lot of advantage over that, it can still give you quite a hard time. And last but not least, even some of the ice types like Dugong, Glalie, and Celio all have a hard time getting over Empoleon, which is interesting because I would think that some of those would have an easier time, but if you notice, some of them are just because they're slow, like Dugong, but some of them are just because they can't push out enough damage. Glalie, we're going to be resisting quite a bit of Glalie's damage, and basically going to be resisting quite a bit of Celio as well, so we end up just having enough damage output to actually end up winning those matches, which is interesting, because I was definitely considering Celio pretty hard, but now Empoleon might be my new squeeze. Unfortunately, getting into our pros and cons here, unfortunately, my first con is that it loses to both Lucario and Lapras. The thing that I like about Celio the most is that it can actually beat Lapras. Just because Empoleon can beat Celio, I don't know if that's enough to knock it out for me though. So, even though we do lose to 2 of the kings, we still do have a Bastiodon under our belt, which is nice. It is nice to at least beat one of the kings. Our next con though is actually how freaking slow Empoleon is. It is so slow. This 2.67 energy per turn just does not cut it. I mean, you're basically... You're taking so long to get to these charge moves. It's horrible. That's the only thing that I think is holding Empoleon back. Other than his slow speed, if he had one charge move that was lower in energy, even if he had something like Water Pulse or something like Body Slam, anything that just really didn't cost these really high numbers, I think Empoleon would be such a better Pokemon in this cup. He's so good at a lot of different things, but he really just gets hardcore beaten by a lot of things that are just plain faster than him. It doesn't even matter that they have type advantage. Things that are faster just end up winning, which sucks. On to our pros though. I actually do think Empoleon is a really safe lead, considering that we win 80% of the matches, and Altaria is a really popular lead. We do beat Altaria. Bastiodon is kind of a popular lead. Some people are worried about, you know, leading in with Bastiodon and going up against Lucario first thing, so that kind of makes it interesting. Lucario is a very popular lead, considering that it wins so many matches. So you do have to worry about that. But other than that, you've got 80% of the cup covered whenever it comes to leading off with Empoleon, which is, I mean, that's Lapras territory. What was Lapras's number? It was in the 80s. It's insane. So I definitely think that that Empoleon has a pretty nice place in the meta. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I would really pick it over Celio. And it's hard to pick Celio over Lapras sometimes. So, I mean, you've got a lot of competition in the water area. Considering he does have the steel typing, it does make him a little bit more interesting. He does have quite the resistances. But I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I think in the right team comp, Empoleon could really shine. I just don't know if I would build my team around Empoleon rather than around something else. Kind of a hard sell. I feel like I say that about every Pokemon in this cup, and it's honestly because if it's not the Kings, it's not even good. I hate it. I hate this cup. That is actually my take on Empoleon, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any Pokemon that you're looking forward to deep dives on, please let me know down in the comments below. Let me know, what do you guys think of Empoleon? Good? Bad? I kind of like him. I say he's like 6 out of 10 for me. I mean, he's not like all-star material, but he's definitely really good. I do actually like him a lot. I don't know that he's going to make my team, because it's pretty scary when you have quite a few things that you're weak to in the cup. Dragons, ground, those are 2 big prominent ones. Electric I'm not super worried about, but dragons and ground I'm kind of worried about. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like to like videos, make sure you do that. If you don't, you can be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in those comments below. And until our next video, I will catch you then.